Doom the Dark Ages is here. Let's see how my Ryzen 5 5600X with RTX 3060 on a B450 platform handled it. The full system spec is in the video description. Let's have a look. At 1080p using ultra quality preset and no DLSS, my system managed to do 41 FPS on average, 35 FPS for 1% lows and 33 FPS for 0.1% lows. The game felt okay, but definitely could benefit from a higher frame rate, since Doom is a fast shooter with a lot of action and higher FPS would result in a smoother gameplay. Going through all the quality settings, we can see that there was no difference between Ultra Nightmare, Nightmare and Ultra settings, and negligible one between Ultra and High settings. Medium increased the average frame rate by 14%, pushing it to 48 FPS. But to reach average frame rate closer to 60, I had to use low settings, which resulted in 59 FPS average or 44% increase compared to Ultra settings. The game felt way smoother and pleasant to play, without noticeable decrease in the graphical qualities. For my system at 1080p with no DLSS, that would be the preset I would choose. At 1440p Ultra settings and with no DLSS, the RTX 3060 really struggled. The system managed to put 28 frames per second for average frame rate, with 24 FPS for 1% lows and 23 FPS for 0.1% lows. That felt pretty sluggish and unpleasant, and I wouldn't say I could enjoy the game at those settings. I wouldn't call it unplayable, but for sure unpleasant, especially compared to 1080p result. Looking at all the graphical settings at 1440p, we can see that even at lowest preset, the 3060 didn't manage to achieve frame rates nowhere near the 60 FPS mark. Despite the fact that at low settings there was a 39% increase compared to Ultra settings, it was not enough for a good experience. And that was to be expected considering the results at 1080p. Technically, the game can be played at 1440p without DLSS, if you consider 30 FPS to be a target for playable frame rate. I don't, at least not for this game. How about DLSS quality? Did that make any difference? Yes, it did. At 1080p on Ultra settings, the average frame rate was 58 FPS, a hefty 41% increase compared to native resolution and a much smoother 60 FPS type of experience. And the graphical quality didn't seem to suffer noticeably from using the upscaling feature. Looking at all graphical presets, DLSS quality setting pushed the average frame rate between 57 and 78 FPS for the highest and lowest preset. Compared to the native resolution, the Nvidia upscaling technology gave an increase in the average frame rate between 33 and 42% for the different quality presets. Basically, we can say that the average frame rate was very close to 60 FPS at the highest graphical presets, and past that number at high, medium and low settings. And did this bump in the frame rates come with a worse visual quality? No, I don't think so. I could not notice anything that looked better on native resolution compared to the upscaled one. For me, DLSS quality did a pretty good job even at 1080p, and I definitely couldn't say that something was missing or wrong with the image. But I definitely could see and feel the difference in the frame rate. At 1440p ultra settings, DLSS managed to achieve 41 FPS for the average frame rate, 36 for 1% lows and 35 for 0.1% lows. That was a serious increase of 48% from native resolution and definitely made the gameplay experience better. Even with DLSS quality, the 3060 didn't manage to hit the 60 FPS mark in any of the quality presets at 1440p, but on low settings it was not that far away with 55 FPS for average frame rate. The upscaling gave from 42 to 48% increase compared to TAA and made the game much more playable at 2K resolution. Low settings seem to give enough average frames for a smooth gameplay. Regarding the visual difference between native and upscaled resolution, similarly to 1080p, at 1440p I didn't notice anything that showed a decrease in the image quality. Nothing was giving away the fact that upscaling was used, at least nothing that was taking away the attention from the action. For me, DLSS quality made the game way better for playing at 1440p, without paying a noticeable visual price. Here is a side-by-side comparison between the 6 graphical presets in the game at 1080p. It was quite hard for me to identify a major difference in the graphics, especially in battles. Even at low settings, the game looked quite good, and the increased frame rate was way more noticeable than a supposed lower visual quality. So this was how my Ryzen 5 5600X and Nvidia RTX 3060 on an old B450 platform performed in Doom: The Dark Ages. I would say at native 1080p the system managed the game. True, I needed to choose low settings to get the 60-ish frames per second on average, but considering the fact that there was no major graphical penalties for that, I think that was not a bad way to play the game. And if DLSS quality was introduced, the frame rate was definitely sufficient for smooth gameplay at any graphical settings. As expected, 1440p was not the resolution for my system. The native 2K sliced the frame rate around the 30 FPS mark, which for fast shooter that Doom is, made the experience not pleasant. DLSS helped and made the game run as if it was 1080p native, which I guess should be the better option since higher resolution with the same frame rate would be better. But still, I would choose 1080p, DLSS quality, medium or high settings, since that gave 60 FPS average or more with no noticeable graphical issues. That was it for this video, thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Happy gaming!